My grandmother always warned me, when you hear a knock at the door at midnight, never ever open it. Some things aren't human, but they're no longer demons either, amen. Always dismissed it as an old wives' tale, just another superstition from a woman who saw ghosts in every shadow. But that stormy July night, as the rain lashed against the windows, everything changed. The knocking was steady, impatient, echoing through the dark old house. I dragged myself out of bed, half asleep, and stumbled towards the door. My hand was on the latch when a sudden cold grip seized my wrist. It was my grandmother. "Don't," she whispered, her voice tight with a fear I'd never heard before. "It's found us." I peered through the crack in the door. A figure stood hunched against the storm, drenched, a traditional straw raincoat clinging to its thin frame. It was just standing there, waiting. The next morning, the storm had passed. But on our doorstep sat a pair of old cloth shoes, neatly placed, soaked through and caked in mud, the kind of mud you'd find in a graveyard. My grandmother stared at them, her face ashen. Her hands trembled as she pulled a small, worn wooden talisman from a string around her neck and quickly tied it around mine. "It's come to reclaim what was once its own," she murmured, her eyes darting towards the woods, as if she expected something to emerge. That's when the memories started to return, fragments of stories I'd overheard as a child. 20 years ago, a woman named Deep lived in our village. She was accused of adultery, and in her shame, threw herself into the village well. The whispers said her spirit vowed revenge on everyone who had wronged her. My father, who was the village chief back then, had been one of her main accusers. A year after Deep's death, my father died. Mysteriously, they found his body at the bottom of that same well. After that night, our home became a place of fear. Furniture would shift slightly when no one was looking. The faint echo of footsteps would sound in the hallway long after midnight. And the smell of wet earth and stagnant water clung to every corner of the house. Even when the windows were sealed shut against the humidity, each morning I'd wake up to find a fresh set of muddy footprints on the floor, leading from the front door, down the hall, and stopping right outside my bedroom. My grandmother seemed to wither before my eyes. She grew weaker each day, spending hours on her knees, drawing strange, intricate symbols on the floor with ashes from the stove. "It doesn't want me," she'd whisper, her hand clutching mine, her knuckles white. "It wants you, Min. You look too much like your father." I tried to convince myself it was all a coincidence, that my grief and my grandmother's paranoia were feeding each other. But then, another night came, the knocking returned. This time it was louder, more demanding. My heart hammered against my ribs as I crept to the door and peered through the narrow slit. I froze. A woman stood there, dressed in a long white dye, completely soaked, as if she'd just climbed out of a river. Her long black hair hung wet over a terrifyingly pale face. She didn't speak. She just slowly raised her hand, extending it towards the door as if asking for something to be returned. And on her wrist, I saw a scar shaped like the letter S. I'd heard that detail before, in hushed stories about Deep. I stumbled back, my breath catching in my throat, and ran to my grandmother's room. But she was gone. The room was empty. On her bed, the talisman she wore for protection lay broken, snapped cleanly in half. Just then, the knocking grew violent, the old wooden door rattling in its frame as if it would splinter apart. And I heard a sound, the steady drip, drip, drip of water somewhere in the house, like a slow, deliberate heartbeat. The air grew thick with the smell of the bottom of a well, cold, muddy, and rotten. In a blind panic, I ran to my father's old storage chest, tearing it open and frantically searching through his belongings. Tucked beneath stacks of yellowed papers, I found a letter written in his familiar yet shaky handwriting. It read, "If you're reading this, Deep has found you. We were wrong. The true guilty party still lives in this village." When morning finally broke, the knocking had stopped. Cautiously, I unlatched the door and opened it. No one was there. Just the same pair of cloth shoes, but this time they were placed on a folded white cloth. Beside them lay a small, golden ring, my mother's wedding ring. It had been missing since the night she died. With the letter in my hand, I went straight to Mr. Lamb, the man who had been my father's deputy village chief. As I told him everything, the knocking, the woman, the footprints, beads of sweat dripped down his temples. His eyes shifted nervously. "You should leave this village, Min," he said, his voice trembling. "Don't dig up the past. It's better left buried." But I couldn't stop. His fear only fueled my need for answers. The pieces started clicking into place. Deep hadn't taken her own life. She had been pushed. She must have known too much about some corruption scandal, something that implicated my father, Mr. Lamb, and others. They framed her for adultery to silence her forever. That night, drawn by an impulse I couldn't explain, I went to the old well. It had been sealed with a heavy stone slab years ago. But standing there, under the pale moonlight, I could have sworn I heard the sound of water moving deep below. The air was damp and heavy with the scent of decay. And then I saw it. A pale hand rose from the dark opening, thin, trembling, and beckoning me closer. I took a step forward, and then another. She was there, in the gloom. Not a vengeful demon, but a woman with a profound sorrow in her eyes. She looked at me, not with hatred, but with a strange sort of pity. Her voice was a mere whisper carried on the wind. "Leave," she said. "He's coming." I spun around and saw Mr. Lamb standing just a few meters away, gripping a heavy wooden club. His eyes were wild, filled with a desperate rage. "I told you not to dig," he snarled, taking a step towards me. In that single, horrifying instant, I understood everything. Deep wasn't trying to hurt me, she had been trying to protect me. My father's death wasn't an accident. And my grandmother knew the truth all along. Lamb lunged at me. But before he could strike, that same pale, ghostly hand shot up from the well, seized his ankle in an iron grip, and yanked him down. His scream was sharp, but it was swallowed instantly by the dark water below. By dawn, the villagers had found his body. He must have slipped in the dark, they concluded, shaking their heads. I returned home, exhausted, but with a flicker of hope that the nightmare was finally over. I stepped into the house, and there, sitting in her favorite armchair, was my grandmother. She was smiling a smile I had never seen before. Last, she said softly, her voice smooth as silk, "I don't have to pretend anymore." Her eyes, once filled with fear, were now cold and sharp. The wooden talisman, once broken, now hung whole again around her, neck stitched together with strands of long black hair. I froze. I recognized that hair. It was Deep's. Who are you?" I stammered, a new, colder terror gripping me. Her grin widened, stretching her face in a way that was completely unnatural. "I've lived in that well for 100 years, she whispered, her voice a low hiss, "waiting for a new body." She stood up, and as she walked towards me, the sound of wet footsteps echoed on the floorboards. The old cloth shoes she wore left fresh, muddy prints across the floor. "And now," she said, her smile reaching her cold, ancient eyes, "it's your turn." I wanted to run, but my legs were frozen, rooted to the spot. The walls of the old house seemed to be closing in, the air thick and heavy with the smell of damp earth. That night, the knocking came again, steady, patient, but this time, it came from within the house. And a voice, my own voice, answered softly, almost gently, "Come in. Some things are not human, but they're no longer demons. Let's open the door together."